Hello and welcome into Betting Life's pregame college football show. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by NBC Sports' Eric Froton and the coach, Gene Clemons, coming live from an event today, which he'll tell you about in a second. You can follow those guys on X at CF Froton and at Gene Clemons. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to be going over our favorite bets on today's card, sides, totals, props, DFS later. Our friend Mike Bainbridge is going to join us for the last 20 minutes for that. And of course, answering all your audience questions. Put those in the box below and we will get to them periodically. Any questions you guys have on today's card. We'd also appreciate if you hit that like button right beneath us. Helps get the word out there that we're doing this. Without further ado, then let's jump into today's card, week 4 card. And if it's anything like last night where we had 3 really good games, we are in for a treat today. We'll start off, though, with the team that might not be so much in for a treat in North Carolina State, who is heading to Clemson without their starting quarterback, Grayson McCall. Devon Boykin, their safety, remains out. CJ Bailey's going to get the start at quarterback, the youngster, for Grayson McCall. You're heading into tough confines here. A noon kickoff. We have a line on this game currently around 20. Clemson favored by 20. Gene, where are you going on this one?
You know, Grayson McCall hasn't been as good as I thought he would be on North Carolina State this year. It's really been surprising. He struggled in a lot of places. It's just so many things that are going wrong for
I think we lost Gene.
Okay, we lost Gene. That's what happens when we broadcast from the car, right?
Yeah, Gene's on a broadcast later today for the I believe the Morgan State game. We'll get him back. Froton, your handicap on Clemson, NC State.
Absolutely. And when it comes to NC State, to sort of expand on what Gene was saying, NC State has had a very rough time in the early going so far. We got our boy back. Sorry, Gene. Sorry, buddy. I'll let you chip in after I'm done. Just go with us. But with NC State, as he alluded to, that entire offense has been legitimately woeful. And it's been in both sides of the ball. You know, it's been the run and it's been the pass game. And, you know, you'd hope that the run game can improve upon their, 124th. They rank in yards per contact, 127th in EPA per rush. CJ Bailey, it's clearly a dual threat type quarterback. I think you're going to see a lot more option type, play calling. I don't think you're going to see them airing it out particularly much today. And then their passing offense, 112th in explosiveness, 108th in yards per successful dropback. We just haven't seen the NC State of yesteryear. And on defense, it's been the same thing. I mean, last year, that was what this team was. The front seven, Peyton Wilson, a superstar linebacker, now gone. They've rebuilt that entire front, 112th in ISO PPP, 129th in average field position in defending. It's been a tough go, and to compound matters, they haven't been able to rush the passer. 119th in sacks per dropback, 120th in sacks per pressure. So that's a problem with this Clemson team. Believe it or not, much better passing. We've really seen Cade Klubnik in these first 3 games, with the exception of Georgia, sort of come of age. 30th in yards per dropback, 10th in completion rate. That was a real problem for them last year. And 6th in passing explosiveness. With NC State having a hard time getting any kind of a pass rush with this rebuilt front seven, with Clemson more healthy in the wide receiver corps. It was a real issue for them last year. They had basically a mash unit out there. I like Cade Klubnik to go over his 254.5 passing yardage mark. He went for over 350 last game. I think that trend continues against a sputtering NC State team.
Gene, that line has come down to 18. So there has been some buyback in the market for NC State late in the week. Looking at this thing live, did you want to add any more thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think it's just a bad matchup. It's bad juju for NC State this week. This is a game that Clemson has to look impressive in, not just win. So I think they'll be incentivized to try to really lay it on NC State early and often and make a statement. This thing going down to 18 makes me even more confident in it. I liked it at 20. I definitely like it at 18. I'll take Clemson. I'll lay the points.
Yeah, this is a game that I'm not going to bet because of some of those things up in the air. But with that line down to 18, my decided lean would be Clemson in that game. I was at around Clemson minus 20 with my system. Anyway, so with all those things up in the air, I'm going to go with Clemson. That one. We saw Clemson blasting Appalachian State. Obviously, the thing that has lingered in people's minds is their performance in that opener. But Clemson coming off a bye as well. Yeah, anyway, that one for me would be Clemson or pass. Boys, the next one, of course, I shoved this one onto the sheet. I always have to talk about the alma mater when I get a shot. Kansas is traveling to West Virginia today. In a game where we've seen line movement with this one too, it has now come down to West Virginia -1, getting closer and closer to a pick-em. Another noon kickoff here. Gene, what are your thoughts on this one?
This is one that I'm still. West Virginia shows a propensity to be able to move the ball. Like I did like the way that they were able to kind of come back and be formidable versus Penn State earlier in this year. I think that they're kind of trending in the right direction. Probably not a game that I'm betting because this one seems like it could go either way. But definitely a game that you want to try to maybe think about the over on, because I think there'll be points to be had in this game. Kansas looking to bounce back from a lackluster performance versus UNLV. West Virginia continuing to try to move on. I think you'll see better scoring from Kansas in this game. I think West Virginia will continue to be able to be effective offensively. This is a game I could see easily being a 28-34 game, somewhere in there where guys are just scoring and getting touchdowns on either side, especially in the second half when we know offenses tend to open up because they've seen what the competition has to bring to them at that point, and they've made the necessary adjustments.
Froton, what about you? Do you have a pick on the side here, and do you have any props in this one?
Geez, with West Virginia, you got to remember their pass defense has been, I think, arguably the worst in the entire Power Four. 128th in yards per dropback, 130th in EPA per dropback, 123rd in passing explosiveness, 132nd in completions of 20-plus yards. But the problem is Kansas has been pretty brutal throwing the ball, too. They can run the ball as much as they want. With Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels, we've seen them 18th in EPA per rush, no problem. But throwing the ball, 120th in net yards per attempt, 123rd in yards per successful dropback. And then most importantly here, and I know, Thor, you're going to expand on this, dead last in interception rate, an 8% interception rate. They've turned the ball over 8 times. Can Kansas get out of their way, Thor, in time to be able to take advantage of a West Virginia pass defense that is just begging to be beat? That's my question for you.
I called stadium security and I said, do not let Jeff Grimes in that building. Do not let Jeff Grimes in that building. The drop-off from Andy Kotelnicki, the new offensive coordinator now at Penn State, to Jeff Grimes, the former coordinator at Baylor. And Baylor fans were not upset when Jeff Grimes left, which probably should have told you something.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, if you remove – now, I know that this is a ridiculous thing to say. If you remove the 7, cataclysmic plays, then the offense have been good. But that's more or less what it's been. Daniels is throwing 6 interceptions at this point. If you remove those, the EPA per play of the Kansas offense – it's relatively close to what they've been doing the last couple years. It's just those plays were all backbreakers. And basically, you had the 23-20 loss to UNLV that absolutely should have been a win. Even with the interceptions on the tally, there was that one play where there was like 8 Kansas defenders standing around a Matthew Sluka fumble, and somehow none of them could fall on the ball. I could go on and on about that one. And then the Illinois game, 23-17 loss. That's where Daniels had the 3 interceptions. Kansas has given away 2 games already. If the passing game is going to turn around at all for Kansas, it has to be in this game, because you're not going to face a worse pass defense going forward than you are today against West Virginia. I got to say it, and I hesitate to even do so. And keep in mind my bias with Kansas, but I'm going over the deflated numbers on Jalen Daniels. His passing numbers have gone all the way down to 195 or so. And the reason for that, of course, is the past 3 games, 153 yards, 141, 148. But again, if there's any game where you are going to get the yardage through the air, it is this one. And Daniels, keep in mind, he was a quasi NFL prospect coming into this season.
Yes.
Grimes is also immediately on the hot seat. If they can't turn around the passing game in this one, we're going to start to talk about Jeff Grimes being fired midway through the first season of his first season at Kansas. So for those reasons, and remember, Kansas, their 3 starting wide receivers, they all came back. You still have that huge threat of the run with Devin Neal. So West Virginia needs to load up for that. They'll get gouged on the ground. I'm going over on that. And then the touchdown passes for Daniels as well, I think are in play 1.5, going over that. But again, you're taking a bit of a leap of faith, but you have the safety net of that horrible West Virginia passing defense to potentially catch you. My line on this game is essentially we're within a point now. I had Kansas minus like a 0.5 point, and this line's now down to West Virginia -1. I'm staying away from the side, but yeah, I'm making a speculative shot there on Daniels.
Yep. Now I gotta play. I'll put this at the end. Preston Fox, wide receiver for West Virginia, caught 2 passes for 41 yards against Penn State in game 1. Since then, 1 for 4 against Albany for 5 yards, 1 for 4 against Pittsburgh for 12 yards. And we've seen his snaps go down. He's basically been marginalized. As we know with Garrett Green, let's just say accuracy is not his strong point. He's pretty much a 55% passer. And Kansas's pass defense is very good. So all those things line up. Preston Fox also is a game time decision. Everything lining up. Throw some money down on Preston Fox's under 26.5.
Yeah, I handicapped that one. I'm with you. I'm on the under of that Preston kid as well for the reasons that you stated. And Kansas's secondary is legitimately good, led by a guy who's probably going to be a day 2 pick in the little Mamba, as I call him, Kobe Bryant, a guy who could have gone to the NFL draft last year, came back. But Kansas's secondary is good. The run defense it has been solid to this point, actually. I mean, better than certainly I thought after they lost all the guys on the front. The defense hasn't been the problem for Kansas. It's been Jalen Daniels throwing the ball to the other side. They fixed that thing. They could come out roaring in this game because it's not a bad matchup outside that. Guys, our next one, we're moving now to 3:30 Eastern. And for the audience, keep putting your questions below. We're going to get to them after the next game. So keep typing those in. One of the marquee games of today, USC traveling to Michigan. This line is all the way down to USC -4. I say all the way down to because it opened at 7 on Sunday. When by the time I got to my sports book, I locked in the Michigan +6.5, and now it's come all the way down to 4. And I'll say this in advance before kicking it to you, Gene. My system's line on this game is Michigan -1. It's the reason why, locked in the 6.5 on Sunday. Also got almost 2-1 on the money line on Michigan on Sunday. Obviously, that's coming back the other way. And for anyone out there on the FantasyLife website, if you go to the bet tracker, college football and betting tracker, you can see my bets during the week as I put them in. Tomorrow on Sunday, I'll be putting several in when the new lines come out. So keep an eye out for that. All that said, Gene, USC traveling to Michigan. You have a lot of storylines here. What is your handicap on this game? Where are you going?
Yeah, for me right now, it's offense, right? This outside of the run game, what are we getting from Michigan? And that's my problem is that you cannot be a one-dimensional football team against really good programs and be successful on a regular basis. I just don't like this passing game from Michigan. And really, if we're being honest about it, I didn't like the passing game from Michigan the last few years. I definitely don't like it now. And nothing, I've seen nothing that tells me it's going to get better against elite level competition. Is USC's defense like a world-stopping defense? Absolutely not. But they've been improved, and we've seen improvement from them. I think that's going to be the difference in this game is the offensive efficiency of USC versus the run game versus Michigan. I think USC covers. I'm gonna lay those points, especially with the total being. With the spread being bet down to where it is right now. I like USC. I think I'm going that way.
And Froton, as Gene's alluding to, the passing game has been way beyond a problem for Michigan. They this week benched Davis Pickle Bryn Warren and have gone to the guy they should have gone to out of camp in Alex Orji. I need a episode or something of the Michigan coach explaining why they put Davis Warren in when that was just Alex Orji's job. And then for some reason they decided these first 3 games to flub around with Warren. But now we get Orji. We at least know that Orji can run. And Michigan has the good running game. Will they have anything in the passing game? That remains to be seen. But your handicap with all those factors in mind, Froton.
Yeah, keep in mind, too, with Davis Warren there, they were still 128th in pace of play. And now they're going to a legit, what I consider a solo threat quarterback who can throw very little. He's not a dual threat. He can't throw. But, man, they're going to be running the ball a lot. I just think it's going to be a very slow script. And for the Wolverines, as if it wasn't bad enough with their passing game, Colson Loveland, who is the only thing they have that is above average option in the passing game, he leads the team with 24 targets. His 19 receptions is more than double the next closest, which is Samaj Morgan, who has 9. And he is very questionable for this game. Dude, if they don't have Colson Loveland, I don't know what they do on offense. That all they can do is run. So I think you're going to see legitimately like an option veer type system, especially if Loveland's out. And what I'm looking at here, if I'm capping, right, I think Michigan wants to slow this game down. I think it wants to slow it down a lot. In my previous show, I had recommended Woody Marks at 67.5. Man, he's gotten bet down to I think he's in mid-50s right now. I'd love to take it. I think we're getting in that range of where we should probably not be chasing that value anymore. I do think we get a slow game, but I like the Orgy over 42.5 rushing yards since I simply don't think they have another option. Sacks could be an issue. They really could. But it's not like I'm particularly scared by this USC defense. I know DeAnton Lynn's in town, new defensive coordinator coming over from UCLA, but they still have a lot of changeover to do on their particular defense. I'm going with Orgy, and I'm crossing my fingers. I think we get kind of an underscript today because of it.
Froton, to clarify, you're going under on Marks or over on Marks?
I like I went under at 67.5. It has since come down to 55.5. I think we're at stay away territory right now.
Okay.
Simply for the volume, because he gets all that work. We only see a little bit of Quentin Joyner, maybe 4 carries a game. I just think I like it closer to that 70 mark.
Yeah, I hit the Marks unders in the low 60s, but I think today it's
going down.
59.5 was the last time I seen it, so it might have ticked back up a little bit. I still lean that way with the under with Marks. The Michigan's best thing by far is their run defense. They have one of the nastiest run defenses in the nation. That's the one thing that hasn't been affected by the rest of this nonsense. But so that one, the other props that I like this week, one of the ones that I put out in my best bets column was the over on Donovan Edwards' receiving, which is a little bit contradictory because he hasn't been involved a ton in the passing game so far. But the Colson Loveland thing, and then you think about the risk aversion of the passing game that they're going to have with Orgy. If you were the Michigan coaching staff and you're in the office this week, you're talking about this game, you're going up against a USC pass defense that ranks 128th in success rate, 130th in completion percentage allowed, adjusted completion percentage rate 119th, 124th in percentage of dropbacks, gaining over 1 yard. You could have the USC pass defense, but Michigan, of course, they're not going to let Mr. Orgy stand back there and survey and go downfield, whatever. It's going to be quick hitting stuff. So if Loveland is severely compromised or is not playing, where do those short passes go? You're not going to throw it to the boundary. Edwards, you guys, the audience knows, you guys know, I have big time issues with Edwards as a runner. He reminds me so much of Kalen Ballage from several years ago, where he has all the athleticism in the world, but no feel and vision. And so that's why Mullings has bypassed them there in that running back room. But Edwards is a skilled receiver, and they use him in the passing game, whatever. His numbers was 8.5, 9.5 all week. Hit that several times. This morning, I think it's up to 11.5, but I would still lean the over on the Edwards receiving yards for these reasons that we're stating, like the Marks under. I think that was all I had for that game. But yeah, I got an interesting, opinion, and it's like you mentioned for that Michigan pass defense. We think about Will Johnson, and we hear about Will Johnson, and he is a legitimate first-round caliber prospect. But dude, Mike Sanders still isn't there covering the slot anymore. He's gone. He's in the NFL. Walking through that door.
Yeah, he was a high third-round pick, and he deserved it. And what do they do now? Well, as you mentioned, they have been porous in terms of their pass defense. We know that USC, Lincoln Riley, they are going to be pass-heavy script. I can't help but think, and this is a Joe Bot Capozzi, One of our boys, one of the great college football prop cappers in America, my friend, the bot, he likes, and I like the idea of Zachariah Branch. He started out at 40.5, up to 45.5 right now. Still a very reasonable number, but with him running primarily out of the slot, no more Sanderstill, Will Johnson on the outside, and them having to throw the ball. They're not going to run the ball. I think you see probably 7-8 targets in those extended handoffs that we're used to seeing out of Zachariah Branch, sort of like the mold we saw Lincoln Riley would scheme for Jordan Addison when he was in USC for that 1 year, when he wasn't injured. That sort of a script, I think you see that out of Branch today because that's where the advantage lies for USC. So I can't help it, but I want to throw a speculative over on Zachariah Branch 45.5.
Yeah, the Michigan pass defense has struggled in a couple of those. The prominent one, of course, being the Texas one, is probably the closest amalgamation for this one. And that's the reason, of course, for this line is, Texas winning their 131-12. And, the public associates that with it. And then also USC beating LSU in the opener. And USC was able to, in that opener, take advantage of one of the Power Four's other worst pass defenses in LSU. So USC was able to keep that one in the air. They had some success with marks on the ground, but they were having all kinds of success with the passing game. And yes, Michigan, you're going to take away one side of the field with Johnson. Some of the other spots in the secondary have been questions. You mentioned Sanderstill, Rob Moore, their stud of a safety, also got injured in, I think, in the spring. Then they had taken a Michigan State transfer to plug them into the starting lineup there. But their depreciation in some other areas of the secondary for Michigan, I like that Branch call. They're going to need to manufacture yards, and there's no better way to do it than get it in the hands of one of college football's most electric athletes in Zachariah Branch. So I'm definitely there with you as well.
And appreciate Stephen Sharp in the comments. Just said Branch is out there at 38.5.
Oh,
we can get him, which we've seen fluctuations, 40 to 45.5, 38.5. I love that. I can't help it.
There's only one Will Johnson on the field, right? Like in other spots, they are susceptible there. And just think about the game script. Again, Michigan's run defense is ludicrous. I don't, and who knows, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't see how USC gets ground yards with marks in this game. I think they have to go through the air. That's why Texas was able to maul Michigan, because they were like, all right, bet, we'll just go through the air. And obviously Quinn Ewers had an awesome game. Miller Moss is also going to have an awesome game for USC to be able to win this game. But for all those reasons, that's why I'm on Michigan. I like the Branch call, the Edwards receiving over as well for me. Guys, the last game before we get to the audience questions, and again, continue to type them in below. A big game in the Big 12, a wide open Big 12. That one of the conferences that we have where we still have no idea who is going to win, and probably the most of any of those Power Fours. Utah heading to Oklahoma State today. Utah, the quarterback situation, Rising obviously missed last week against Utah State. They announced Utah. Well, they didn't announce Dorian Singer, the well-traveled receiver. He told the media on Monday, no, Rising's going to play. And those are the indications we've gotten, although officially Utah is still calling Rising a game-time decision. This line was Oklahoma State -2.5 in Boone Pickens Stadium. Then it had gone to Utah -2.5 for a while. Now we have swung back to Oklahoma State -1 as we sit here this morning. I don't know if that's market buyback on that side or if the market now has more pessimism about Cam Rising's status. If we knew Rising wasn't playing, that line should be higher, but obviously still up in the air. Gene, with all those factors in mind, what's your handicap on this game?
All right, Gene's out. The car is giving us our time. I'll handle this.
All right,
Utah.
Yeah.
Like we said, I think Cam Rising is playing as well. And when he does, that pass offense was legit. Third in passing explosiveness with him in the around 11.2 net yards per attempt with Cam Rising, not Isaac Wilson, of course. And their pass defense is phenomenal. Second in EPA per dropback a lot. Fourth in completion rate. I mean, this is Utah. Welcome. This is what do you expect? A little bit softer than you expect against the run. They're kind of in the 60s and the 50s and a lot of those key metrics. But, when I look at Oklahoma State, that Arkansas game, they only had a 14% post-game win expectancy against Arkansas. And that was a game that was wild. That one, Taylor Green competing 40% of his passes, but when he does, it's deep. And that's a thing with Oklahoma State is they're 111th in 30 and out rate. 37% of the time they're going 3 and out, 120th in 20-yard plays, 81st in ISO PPP. So like in terms of their explosiveness, that really isn't what they do. And with Utah, ironically, they actually give up some big plays through the air. They're very efficient, 10th in passing success rate, 9th in EPA per dropback, but 120th in marginal explosiveness. So what Oklahoma State does well, which is hit those short, precise passes, that's what Utah takes away, and they're going to dare them to beat them over the top. I don't know if Alan Bowman can do that. And with Ollie Gordon, we've seen a drastic decrease in efficiency in his rushing. And a lot of that has to do with kind of their line rebuilding and having injuries on the offensive line for Oklahoma State. I believe their best offensive lineman, their right guard, I think will be out for this game. I just don't know how Oklahoma State is going to be able to handle this Utah team with Cam Rising in. Cam Rising's out. That's a different conversation we're having. With Cam Rising in, this is just too well-formed of a team with too few, things that you can exploit. And on the other side, Oklahoma State, we know that Utah is going to be able to do what they want against them in certain facets of the game. I just think there's too many ways for Utah to win and too few for Oklahoma State.
Ollie Gordon, who last year he finished with 1,732 yards on the ground, 21 rushing touchdowns, 6.1 yards per carry. Froton, trivia time. The first 3 games of last season, how many rushing yards did Ollie Gordon have?
Oh, wow. So we're going non-con, right? Maybe did they keep him in the barn? I'll go with 170,
109.
Okay. Whoa.
It was a slow start for Mr. Gordon last year, too, even though he put up this, and was over 2,000 yards from scrimmage by the end of the season. You toss in the receiving yards. Maybe that's just something with Gordon. There has been something off the last couple of games. I agree with you. I think this is the matchup for him to get back on track because Oklahoma State needs him, right? I mean, you mentioned the strength of Utah. It's that pass defense, which I'll get back to that in a second because I think that's an interesting matchup in and of itself. But you can get Utah on the ground. Gundy knows it. Oklahoma State knows it. That's what they have to do in this game. Another interesting sort of side of the handicap deal with this game is they issued a heat advisory for that area of Oklahoma for when this game is going to be played. That could have a deleterious effect on the Utah team in general. But you think about their defenders as well. And if Ollie is just pounding, obviously Salt Lake City is a more temperate climate than they're going to face today. I like the matchup for Oklahoma State's running game. And then the Oklahoma State passing game against that really good Utah pass defense. So Utah is top 10 in pressure rate. They get after and that's where it sort of starts with them. They get after the quarterback. They force quick decisions. And then you see the mistakes. And then their defensive backs are able to get their hands on balls on these, the timing gets thrown off or you have errancy because of this and whatnot. Oklahoma State's, their passing offense, though, I think it's at least equipped to take away the strength of Utah's pass defense because you look at the advanced numbers on this thing. Last year, Oklahoma State, they were top 10 in least sacks allowed per game. This year, they've allowed 0 sacks. I grant you that Utah's pass rush is way better than the teams that Oklahoma State has played so far. But keep in mind the reason that Oklahoma State doesn't give up sacks. It's because of that quick-hitting passing game, right? They spread the field, and then Bowman gets rid of the thing right away. I mean, you can think of, Austin Reed at Western Kentucky, Bailey Zappi at Western Kentucky, Bo Nix at Oregon. It's a very similar thing. You've got the guys on the perimeter, and then it's the quick hit. When they're going to the passing game, try to thin out the box so you can't load up on Ollie Gordon, right? It's just a numbers thing. Okay, we'll get it to the outside and someone's going to break tackles. I think that neutralizes, at the very least, Utah's pass rush, which is going to have a downgrade effect on the Utah pass defense. I think those things are more or less a wash, right? I mean, like, you're right. Oklahoma State's not going to hit passes downfield, which leads me to one of my props on this game, which is the under on Alan Bowman passing. I think the completions for Bowman could be there, but the passing yardage, I don't see it being there. And in part, that's because my handicap, I like Oklahoma State to win this game. I think that they match up decent in this game, the rising stuff being up in the air. And you have that trump card of Ollie Gordon going up against a Utah run defense, which is middle of the road. And as long as he can control it and they can control the clock, that's also why I'm going over on Ollie Gordon. I have seen at the books. Ollie Gordon was a bit over 100 when his number dropped. It's all the way down to like 80.5 or 82.5, depending on the book that you look at. I'm going over. I disagree with the market on this. He's going to get his touches. This is such an important game for Oklahoma State. You're at home. You're facing the team that some people think is the front runner to win the Big 12. This would be an enormous win, obviously. So I funneled through Gordon, going over that 80.5 yards. I'm going under on the Bowman passing yardage, which was set way, way too high. On the Utah side, I didn't have as many just because the status of Rising, we've had some numbers off the board there, and I don't even know if is Rising up currently. I haven't
seen him. I don't think he's up, but let me take a look as you're going through this.
Yeah, and you look at Oklahoma State's defense, you can beat them through the air, 74th pass success rate, 102nd yards per dropback. But where is Rising? Like, is he going to be 100% if he plays? If he's a game time decision, if they're not lying about that, you wouldn't assume so. So I just don't know what percentage of Cam Rising we're getting, and that's going to inform that. So because I don't know that stuff, I'm staying away. But I do like those two on the Oklahoma State side.
For Rising, I'm not seeing him on the domestics. He's not on Underdog. He is on Prize Picks at 222.5. He's not on Sleeper. And he's on ESPN Bet at 213.5. So that's the one domestic we're getting him at, and you'd have to go to Prize Picks if you want him. That's 222 and 213. So you get a 9-yard differential there on Rising.
We're gonna and welcome Gene back into the room. We're gonna get to open our mailbag for the first time. And keep asking questions, audience. We'll get to them later in the show as well, but we're gonna open the mailbag for the first time now. Snook Slayer, our boy, hello friend. He said 0-3 Cowboys versus 2-1 Mean Green. What does the crystal ball of Cashola say? Gene, you want to start us off with that one?
No, I want to hear the crystal ball of Cashola. That's what I want to hear.
I love that.
I'm new to that one. I need to hear that.
Froton, you got to take on this one.
Well, let me tell you something, Mean Green. Yeah. North Texas, just an absolute baptism, last week coming off of that. Let's see how they respond. I am starting Chandler Morris this week in fantasy, so you can take that for what it is. Wyoming has been.
They've been terrible.
Well, we talked about it. The defense. What happened to the Wyoming Cowboys? Craig Bowl is out.
Yeah, come back.
So it's just any semblance of a decent program.
Yeah, they've been
bad.
It's been bad, and they've obviously struggled to move the ball. My system is indicating line value on Wyoming. It's one of those you're gonna have to hold your nose though. And the reason I couldn't get to the window on this thing is I like to bet Wyoming when they're at home. And you can bet I'll be holding my nose and buying some Cowboy tickets later this season when they're at home, even the way that they've looked, because that's where they typically ambush people. And it's sort of the opposite when they go on the road. In this game, you're against that North Texas team that loves to play the tempo. If Wyoming hasn't figured their defense out, they're going to get wiped off the field in this game. Obviously, they're going to try to turn it into a rock fight and go slower, et cetera, but that has not worked so far. They're not putting points up on anyone. They got obviously destroyed.
10.5 points a game. That's brutal.
Yeah,
brutal. I mean, this is North Texas, which is the team you want to play, if that's the situation.
Of course. A terrible defense there on North Texas, but what can we establish a run at least? Wyoming, can we do literally anything? The quarterback that your boy Jay Sawville was comparing to Josh Allen over the offseason, Evan Svoboda. Yeah. He you look at him, he looks exactly like Josh Allen. They're the same player, except Evan Svoboda stinks. Yeah, I mean, if he had football talent, then he'd be Josh Allen. But he hasn't figured it out. The running game hasn't been there, and the defensive regression. I don't know what's going on there. So even though, again, my system is in fact, my system's at like North Texas -2 on this. If I had to bet it, I would probably do Wyoming, but I'm staying away for the reasons that, I stated. I don't like them on the road, and I don't know if they've figured anything out. Appreciate the question.
Their offense isn't just bad. Last in success rate, last in EPA per play, last.
Matthew Reyes asks us, where can I catch Thor on podcast during the week? We have two before this one. On Mondays, I do early line show with Claudia Bellafudo, and then on Thursday, we get into some of the bigger games on the board during the week, and then some of the bets that I've locked in. Those ones are live on Monday and Thursday mornings, so you can check that out on the same channel that you're watching this one. Appreciate that. The Monday one, I like that one because I can toss out some ones where there's line value, and you get on it before the lines have ended up moving. So that's definitely worth checking out. YGG Young Walt says Georgia Southern team total under. I'm gonna have to look that one up. You boys got what the Georgia Southern team taught, because I don't have the book open right now.
Let me see what the team total is. Let me get into my main markets here. For
Thor's,
and this is Thor's Georgia Southern.
I can tell you why while you guys are looking that up. They're playing Ole Miss, and if you've been watching what Ole Miss has been doing this year, they've been bludgeoning people. Yeah. And the one thing that we know about Georgia Southern, they haven't stopped water from running. All like they've been a sieve on defense the entire season. Remember what Boise State did to them early in the year, hung 56 on them. So this is a game where if you're thinking that Georgia Southern has a chance to be competitive, probably want to think differently on it. However, I do, and I say this every week, Ole Miss has a defense that is there to be scored on, especially later in the second half when they lose focus because they're up by a ton of points and everybody's gotten fat off the W. You can see Georgia Southern put some points up. I have been impressed, Thor. I have been impressed with the quarterback. I know we talked about that in week 1.
Yeah, JC French, baby.
Yeah. Like were they going to be able to develop their own quarterback? It seems like French might be that guy. I've been impressed with what he's been able to do. I think they'll put some points on the board. I'm not sure if you've seen where the over under is.
Froton, do you see their team total on that?
I'm scrolling through.
You pulled it up, guys. If you ask us any questions on the exotic markets, please put the lines in there because we don't have literally all the numbers up there. But I'm assuming it's got to be around the implied. It's got to be around 10, right? I mean,
I could definitely see them scoring 2 touchdowns in this game. Especially
here we are.
Or maybe
their team total. There's a pretty good fluctuation on it. I'm seeing 14.5 as a low. And that's, you can get that on Bet Online. Looks like it's there. That's where I'm seeing it. On the high side, you're seeing 16.5. Okay. And that's at Bet ESPN. We got 15.5 on FanDuel.
All right.
15.5 on DraftKings.
One word answers. One word answers. Gene, over or under that number?
Under.
Froton, one word answer. Over or under that number?
Under 16.5.
I'm going to go under that as well. You can get Ole Miss through the air. Their run defense has been fabulous so far, but their pass defense has still been above average. But we'll move on to our next question there. We got Historical Anomaly said, we're on the same game. Will Dart be in long enough to keep his 300-yard game streak going? Kiffin probably going to assure that, right? Yes. I mean, you boys with that?
Absolutely.
This is Lane Kiffin we're talking about. No feelings spared.
We're in a Heisman campaign now, yeah. So I think he's getting to 300. Karen Shetty asks us, Max Brosmer over 25.5 pass attempts. We're gonna get to that game in a bit here. And Froton and I both like one particular one on the Minnesota side with regards to the passing game. On that one though, I'm not on the Brosmer attempts. I would probably go under on that one. Do you guys have any thoughts?
Against Iowa. Yeah, I mean, I would assume we get a steady dose of Darius Taylor. They're not a prolific passing team anyway.
We'll get into just to this one. We're going to get into that game in a second.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, and the reason why is PJ Fleck is super duper risk averse. Go back to the last time they played Iowa at home. They gave the ball to Mo Ibrahim 40 times. He didn't want to turn the ball over. Our Stews asks us, good morning, guys. Who do you like on the money line? The Arizona State Texas Tech game. Gene, do you have thoughts on that one?
I would lean Arizona State but Texas Tech, if you're taking stock in what they did last week, but both of those teams, I'm probably staying away from this game. I would lean Arizona State as a quick look, but not a game that's on my radar as I want to try to throw some money on it.
Froton, any quick thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Scadabo's playing. First off, he's been banged up. That's what happens when you give him 70 carries in a 4-day span, because they had that Saturday, Thursday turnover. So he's banged up, and their passing offense ranks around 102nd in terms of overall team efficiency. So they're leaning on that run. You can see a lot of DeCarlos Brooks today. As we know with Texas Tech, Baron Morton is throwing all over the place. I got to be honest. I kind of lean Texas Tech just because I feel like Arizona State has been fortunate. Outside of the Wyoming game, I feel like they were 50-50 shot in terms of win expectancy against both Mississippi and against Texas State. I just feel like they've been very lucky, and I think the luck runs out.
Yeah, I'm not on the side of this one, but I'm on the Morton over, and I'm actually on the Taj
I'm on the Morton
Brooks
over as well. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm on the Taj Brooks unders by contrast, because Arizona State's run defense is really, really good. I swept the player props. I think I went 5 for 5 in the Arizona State against Texas State one, because Arizona State, they have one of those lopsided defenses with the one pronounced strength and then the weakness on the other side. They can stop the run. Taj Brooks can shut people off them, but recall, Taj Brooks just returned last week after missing a game to injury. Presumably, he's not 100% going up against a good run defense here. Those would be my plays there. Boys, we're going to move back into the games. We got to go quick here so we can get Mr. Bainbridge on. We're running a bit low on time, so we'll go quick hitters on these, starting with Florida State, the beautiful travesty that is the Florida State Seminoles. Laying 2.5, I think, is what we still have in the market. That's more or less where it stayed all week. Today, hosting Cal, coming across the country. The memes that the Cal fan base has put out on Twitter this week have been absolutely sensational. Welcome to Major College Football, Cal. They were probably clever the whole time. We just didn't know it, but now that they're undefeated. Gene, quick on this one. Who do you like in this one, Florida State and Cal?
I can't keep disrespecting Cal by putting, teams that haven't looked good at all over them. I think Cal comes in here, takes care of business. I just think they're the better team right now, if we're just being honest. Florida State hasn't given me any reason to be confident about what they're doing. I'll go Cal here.
Froton?
I can't help it. I can't. It's been a DJU fade fest all year long. Who am I to stop it? This very well may be the last chance we get to bet DJU. I mean, him and Brock Glenn have been splitting reps for the past 2 weeks. I can't imagine he goes out and puts out a performance like he did last week. And Mike Norvell is just like, oh yeah, let's try. Let's keep him out there. Let's just keep this rolling, right? I love his under. He started out at 1.5. You might have.
He's 195.5 now. Yeah, I'm on the under of that as well. And the touchdown and a half passing under on DJU. Any other ones, Froton?
Roll it. Malik Benson under 42.5. Yeah. And I don't know why they're giving us Roydell Williams again. They gave him 42.5 again. So here we are. Roll it, fade all of them.
Yeah, fade them off. Yeah, we don't even know what their offensive philosophy is anymore. Where are they going to have a running back? They've been tossing out that freshman more and more. Toa Philly.
What is going on?
I don't even see how Roy Dell gets the touches to get there. And then DJU.
On the first carry last game.
The DJU one speaks for itself. DJU might get benched in this game. I thought it was going to happen potentially last week. This one is another scenario where the fans are going to be yelling for blood if they're down to Cal by double digits in the second half. I'm all over Cal on this one. Agree on those prop angles. And the last thing I'll say, Cal already went across the country and upset a team, much better one in Auburn. And that was a game where Ott did nothing because he had gotten dinged up. Cal didn't have a run game, and they still beat Auburn, a way better team. Like I said, this time Ott is back. We've gotten reports, Pete Thamel, other people putting out this morning, Jaden Ott's going to play. Jaden Ott is by far their best player. Is one of the best, going to be one of the top running backs taken in April. This is Cal finally getting back to full strength, and this is a Florida State team that is dying to be put out to pasture. That's what I think happens today. Cal in the upset that shouldn't be considered an upset at all. Guys, next game, Tennessee traveling to Oklahoma. We're in the 7:30 Eastern time slot in this one. Oklahoma now is 6.5, getting 6.5 points here at home. This one had gone to 7.5 like right away. I like Sunday night, Monday morning, where the early money just flew in on Tennessee. Bit of an overreaction there. The market has now bought it back to 6.5. Gene, with the number right there, Tennessee traveling in the Josh Heupel revenge tour. Who do you like in this one?
I like Josh Heupel. I like Tennessee. I've been on Tennessee all year. I think they have.
I think we have a technical difficulty.
We lost you.
We have, as always.
Hop in, Froton.
16% post-game win expectancy against Houston last week for Oklahoma. 16-12 was the score of that game. Gross. This is not the Oklahoma offense of yesteryear. 129th success rate, 114th in place of 20 plus. I mean, this passing game is down bad. Nick Anderson returns this week, 10 touchdowns last year. Really need him at wide receiver. But, the defense is the backbone of this Oklahoma team. 17th in EPA per play, 10th in ISO PPP, and an elite run defense. But their pass D, not so great. Not so great. 68% completion rate. That's 116th. 44% pass success rate. Not great. I like Nico Iamaleava to go over 248.5 passing yards. That's as close as I can get to pronouncing his name. I also like fading Oklahoma on the other side. Gavin Sawchuk, look, he's had 15 yards rushing each of the past 2 weeks. He's up at 28.5 right now. The strength of Tennessee's defense is their run defense. They are pretty darn good. 7th in EPA per rush, 24th in rush success rate. I don't see that happen. I don't think either of their running backs cover that. I don't think Javante Barnes is going to be in good shape for 42.5 either, but I think the better value is Sawchuk. So I'll go under on Sawchuk, over on Nico.
Yeah, we got winds in this one later. It's around 10 miles per hour, which probably isn't going to affect anything. But keep an eye on the forecast for that vis-a-vis the passing games. Totally agree with you on Tennessee's going to – Oklahoma doesn't have a great running game as is. And the lights are going to be shut out on that because Tennessee has a really, really, really good run defense. Where you can get Tennessee is through the air with the efficiency stuff. And, vis-a-vis that, Oklahoma in this game, you get back Nick Anderson, who has been out to this point, their deep threat. That's going to help to open up space for Deion Burks. And then the other guy back, Andrell Anthony, is back as another deep ball guy. So now you have 2 deep ball guys back. Burks is the guy that they shuttle the touches to down the line. That's what they're going to have to do to win this game. It's pretty straightforward. Can Tennessee deal with that? Can Oklahoma get any deep shots, which have not been a tenet of the offense so far? But now you got your 2 guys back that can do that. But yeah, the running game's off there. I would lean Oklahoma just from a numbers perspective on this one. But of course, you have the hypo revenge thing there. The Froton, I'm with you on the Sawchuk one. Like I said, that both those running ones, I didn't hit a lot of the other ones except for Nick Anderson under 4.5 receptions. With Nick Anderson,
first game back,
and he's the downfield dude. Right? Like he's not Deion Burks is the dude that you force the targets to. He's the guy you want to go over on the reception, not Mr. Anderson. Froton, our next one here, and guys, continue to type in the question. We'll get to him in a second. Iowa, Minnesota, the game that I'm going to be at this evening. Another 7:30 Eastern kickoff. Minnesota right now is getting 2.5 points at home against Iowa. This is another revenge game, right? I mean, Iowa fan base, and of course, I'm a part of it. Of course, they have been complaining for a year now, and myself included, about the fair catch that wasn't the Cooper DeJean touchdown return at the end of that game for the Iowa win that got reversed when the refs went into the booth to check if Cooper had stepped out of bounds. They saw him doing the wave off thing when the ball hit the ground. Kirk Ferentz has never been more upset about one singular thing in his entire coaching career as that overturned punt return, which led to Iowa taking a loss instead of a win. And it got Minnesota to a bowl game. They would have been 4-8 without that. 5-7, they get to top APR team. And Minnesota's like, it's not a thing. To Iowa, it's a real thing. These 2 teams, they play similar ball. Froton, what do you think about this game tonight, which is going to be on your network on NBC this evening?
Yeah, a little NBC and the cock. We got a little doubleheader here over there. Yep. We're very excited about this. And as Thor mentioned, this is a revenge game. Minnesota managed to squeak this out last year. And now with Brian Ferentz mercifully being jettisoned to the unemployment line. Actually, he's coaching somewhere, I think, right now. He was in at high school, Thor. But as far as plays I like in this game, I know that you will get in and elaborate on this, but Darius Taylor, running back Minnesota, I think that they're going to have to be kind of creative in the way that they move the ball. I don't think that Max Brosmer is going to be pushing it down the field vertically. And I do think that they're going to have to be creative. And with Darius Taylor, in his 2 games that he's actually played, obviously missed the first one, 9 targets. He's caught all 9 of them for 95 yards. He has been crushing this 15.5 receiving yards line. I feel excellent about him. And like I said, 4 targets one game, 5 targets the next. Give me Darius Taylor's over. I also like Caleb Johnson over 78.5 rushing yards. This opened at 70, which is just too low. They keep opening Caleb Johnson at 2023 numbers. Like, this is a different offense. They're calling a different offense here, and they are doing a very good job of asserting themselves on the line and establishing dominance in the trenches. Why wouldn't you continue to ride Caleb Johnson with how effective he's been? Clearly the number one running back in this backfield. I think he gets close to 20 touches, and if that happens, he's going to average over 4. Give me that over.
Yeah, the Darius Taylor over receiving I love here. Keep in mind the quarterback they brought in, Max Brosmer, who we got the question about before. Brosmer threw to running backs more than any quarterback in the FCS or FBS last year. His running back was Dylan Lobby, right? The 5th-round pick of the Raiders. Brosmer's game has already facilitated way more looks for Darius Taylor in the passing game than he had gotten before. It through two games, because recall, Darius Taylor did not play in the opener because of injury. But through the 2 games, Taylor has 9 catches, so averaging 4.5 for game for 85 yards and a receiving touchdown. Brosmer is looking for him in the passing game. So that number being at, it came up a little bit, but even at 18.5, I'm hitting the over on that as well. And on the Iowa side, the one that I loved was the Luke Lachey over.
That's right. I'm sorry, I forgot it.
Luke Lachey is Iowa's. He's their wide receiver 1, their de facto wide receiver 1. This number is lower because he got shut out against Iowa State. He was still getting the targets, but he was held to 0 receptions in that game, mostly because Cade McNamara was errant. In this one, 2 catches for sure is going to get Lachey over. They're going to have to throw the ball a little bit, right? I mean, this is going to be another really close one. And barring Cade McNamara conspiring to steal our money again with this prop, he's going to get there. Lachey gets targeted all the time. The thing here, the numbers, I think it's over 6 targets per game if you look at the full games he's played going back to the start of last season. And I think even throwing in the game where the Iowa State game where he had 0 catches, I think he's averaging about 4 catches during those games as well. And Iowa doesn't have anyone else in their passing attack. So I'm going over on the Lachey. Guys, one more, and then we'll get back to your questions. We got to do this one super duper quick. So one paragraph or less. Kansas State traveling to BYU. Kansas State laying 7. Gene, who do you like in this one? Froton, who do you like in this one?
As far as Kansas State gets torched on D with big passing plays, 112th in adjusted completion rate, 111th in passing marginal explosiveness. And with BYU, they're actually Jake Retzlaff has been pretty good throwing the ball through the air. 23rd in yards per dropback, 37th in EPA per dropback, and most importantly, 13th in a completion rate of 20-plus yards. 20%, 27% of his throws are going for over 20 yards. I like Chase Roberts at 51.5 receiving yards. Very reasonable rate, proven to be the number 1 wide receiver there. He's crushed that each of the past couple games. And I think BYU is going to have to throw. So give me that over 51.5 on Chase Roberts.
Yeah, with this line coming down to 7, that's where I might start to consider Kansas State. But my line on this game is Kansas State minus 8.4. I think it's the 10:30 game, so maybe it'll depend on where I'm at with the day. But by the time that we get there, but this will be a stay away for me. In the prop game, I don't think I had anything on this one. So we're gonna get back into the. Well, we'll start with Gene. If you're good to go, your FCS play of the day, and then we'll open the mailbag back up one time, and then Mike Bainbridge is coming on. We're going to empty the clips of the rest of our player props and DFS Mike's DFS picks. But Gene, you want to give out your FCS play of the day?
Yeah. And by the way, I think Kansas State has a great opportunity to prove a point here. They've been a little bit inconsistent, but I think this is a great time. With that number dipping under 7, I definitely would lean Kansas State on that game. But I'm out here in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, because I'm covering the Morgan State Virginia game, Lynchburg game tonight. I'll be on ESPN 3, not ESPN 3, excuse me, ESPN Plus at 6:00 covering that game. It's just another opportunity to continue to boost up the FCS. North Dakota State welcomes in Towson this week, and Towson actually did a really good job of playing against Villanova last week, but now they take another step up. My problem with Towson and the way they play is that they give up running yards, tons and tons and tons of rushing yards to every team, and you can't give up rushing yards to North Dakota State, one of the best rushing teams in the FCS. This number right now is at 24.5. It seems like a lot, but North Dakota State has really been on a mission this year to prove that they are still the class of the FCS, that South Dakota State hasn't taken over that mantle. I like North Dakota State at home versus Towson, raucous crowd to cover that 24.5. That's my FCS play of the week.
Guys, we're going to open the mailbag one last time. We got to have quick responses here because we're going to get Bainbridge up here in a second. Let's see. We got our friend Shane Whitehead asked us, Khalil Mullings anytime touchdown. I know that those odds are it's juice for sure. Minus 175, maybe even up to 200. Froton, do you have thoughts on that? Should people lay the juice on the Mullings anytime touchdown?
Dude, I feel pretty damn good about it. I'll say that much. As we've talked about on the show and in other places, I've been heavy Khalil Mullings over Donovan Edwards, as Thor has been all offseason. I mean, if you just watch the way these two guys run, it's clear that Mullings has just more juice and is more physical, and he's geared towards that between tackles. We're not going to see Donovan Edwards get the interior touches. If they are scoring a ground touchdown, it is going to be Khalil Mullings. I think it's much more likely to happen than not. So I am backing that. I'm pretty sure Bainbridge likes it too, but I'll let him speak for himself.
Our friend Mike Huseman has a question for Mean Gene. He says, can Eastern Washington cover 12.5 today against Nevada? What are your thoughts, Gene?
They definitely can. They definitely can. They have an offense that can get it going. I don't think they've been as consistent as I like to see them, or as I've seen them in the past be. And so I don't think they're going to cover today, because I think Nevada will be able to put one on the board late. Eastern Washington, the lack of consistency that I've seen hasn't been as explosive or as dynamic as they've been in the past. I think that bodes well for Nevada, who might be struggling, but going up against an FCS team that's not at the top of their game, I think they have a chance to cover that 12.5. I mean, I think they have a chance to be good with the 12.5. So I wouldn't bet Eastern Washington today. If I was taking one of those two teams, I would probably take Nevada.
We have a question in here about the Boise State. Can Boise State cover 41 and hit the game total over of 69? Do you guys have any quick thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think they can.
Portland State.
We saw Portland State get ripped 77 to nothing in the first game. Like that. I actually have one of my good friends who is a Portland State guy. He's one of the few legit Portland State football fans. And he has not been pleased with what he's seen from his Portland State team. I don't think there's any way you can take Portland State and expect them to cover. No way. I wouldn't touch them.
The Gene T rushing total in this game was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Or I've never seen a number like that. It was I gotta pull it up and see what it is live. It is
biblical. Where it is, yeah, I forget.
So far up there, and that one, of course, that handicap. It's just, what are they going to pull him? Are they going to pull him at halftime? They're blowing this Portland State team out.
Sire Gaines time, right? Yeah, Chambers, Kubler, right? Get all the boys some work. This
one was like once in the 160s or something. As far as the game goes, my system is right around. I got Boise State minus 42.3. I had seen a line in this game. What was the cited line that he's 41? So I guess come down a little bit. I had 41.5, so it come down a half point. I guess I'd probably lean Boise, but again, it's just the prerogative there. Are they gonna keep the starters in a little bit later and then go for the throat here? Maybe, you have different factors now with the 12-team playoff, right? I mean, style points matter for the teams that are going to be in that discussion. Boise State will be, but yeah, the prerogative of the staff. It feels like a high total, but then again, that's probably a nod back to Portland State and Wazoo, which I believe got to 100 even. I think it was 70-30 if memory serves correctly. Gene, did you have a thought on Portland State traveling to Boise and getting all those
points? Dropped. I think he's out.
Oh, Gene's out. Froton, we had another, just before we get Bainbridge in, I want to quick hit some other people's prop questions in the chat here. Yeah. Shane had asked us, the Nico over 32 rushing. I forgot if you hit that during our handicap. Did you have thoughts on the rushing?
No, I did not, but I do have a thought on it. I actually took his under 11.5 rushing attempts. We've seen him over the course of the first 3 games, 5, 3, and 8 over the first 3 games. So I don't think he's going to get 12 rushing attempts. That's a big, big rushing line. So I am actually taking his under rushing attempts. Do I think he gets to 32.5? I think it'll be pretty damn close.
Yeah,
but I'm ambivalent on it. I think 11.5 rushes. He hasn't even sniffed.
Yeah, I'm staying away from that one too. We had another question from Fuge who asked us the West Virginia back, Jaheim White, he 64 and a half rushing yards. Where would you go on that one?
Dude, Donaldson has looked much more healthy this year. Like every time I've watched it, what I've seen of West Virginia, I watched both of them in that last game because I was curious because White had more juice last year. He just simply did. This year, Donaldson looks good. He's a big back, man. He's like 240, 250 pounds. I think he's been more effective. I would rather have Donaldson taking his over. I'm okay with his under. I'm okay with Jaheim White under. I think he has to pop one, and he's 180 pounds. I'm slanted towards Donaldson in that.
Gordon Morrow had asked us, you like Branch over 3.5 catches today too?
Yes.
We're
100%. I like the 3.5 catches probably even more than I like 45.5 yards because he's going to get the manufactured touches, the extended handoffs. I see.
Sean Glenn asked us rising 25.5 rushing yards with that status of the hand against Oklahoma State. What do you think about that one, Froton?
That's a good question. It's a tough call. You know,
yeah.
First off, does he start? I mean, I think he will. Do they want to put him in harm's way? How many scrambles do they get as opposed to, designed RPOs? Do they want to risk, him running and getting a helmet on the hand? I'm staying away from that respect.
I'm saying, 100% rising. I would go over, but because of that stuff and the game time decision, and then are they going to try to protect him more by not calling that kind of stuff? A little bit up in the air. I mean, you could do if I had to bet one, I might go a speculative under, but you would project again if he was 100%, he's probably going to go.
I would like over if he's 100%.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons that I mentioned before when we were talking about Utah and Oklahoma State why I was staying away from the props, offensive props on the Utah side more or less because of all those questions up in the air, and it's not just the player himself; it's then the game script thing. And if you can't see the way that their offensive games, you can't predict it in advance. It's hard to get there on the props. Then you're sort of in a gray zone. You're being asked to make more situational assumptions. So for me, that's a stay away. There's no problem staying away. Let's see if we had any other ones before we get to Bainbridge. Oh, Fuji asked us. Actually, I was looking around this one this morning. Michigan State had Fuji asked us. K-Ron Adams, Lynch Adams. The 39.5 rushing yards. It's kind of interesting against Boston College today. Although, of course, you have the Nate Carter thing there as well. Did you have thoughts on that one, Froton?
Yeah, I have thoughts. I have concerns about Aiden Childs throwing the ball. I mean, I have real concerns about that. Keep in mind, you want to talk about turnovers? Go to Michigan State, 127th in turnovers. That ain't going to fly against the Bill O'Brien coach team. Like, we know BC ain't going to do that. They're not going to hurt themselves. And they run the ball, and then they run the ball, and then they drop back Castellanos, and then just let him bounce around and make magic. So I like BC in this game. I like K-Ron Adams more than I like Nathan Carter, but it is a split situation against a BC team that is 130th in pace of play. They're as slow as it gets. I'm concerned about that. In this game, if I'm going to go with anything, I'm probably avoiding the Adams. I like Velling. He's at 18.5 right now. I think on Sleeper and Caesars, I believe. That's a smoking deal on him. Dude, he ranks 3rd nationally for tight end ADOT. So in terms of like going down the field and really ripping the seam, that's what Jack Velling does. And again, we're talking about Childs. Like, Velling is right there in front of him. He's the safety blanket. He needs to drop it off. He's doing it. I love the Velling over. I respect where you're going with Adams. I'd rather have him than Carter, but still a split situation.
Yeah, and the defensive profile of Boston College, they are more susceptible through the air than they are on the ground. And maybe it's because they face that good rushing attack every day in practice. But either way, I have nibbled on the Childs overpassing for this reason. I was 190, somewhere around there. And love the Velling one as well. The rushing ones, I stayed away from both the Michigan State ones. You have to sort of parse out the usage share there, and then Boston College's run defense being better. I actually disagree with you on the side, Froton. I have a ticket for Michigan State plus 6.5 in this one. Liked what I've seen from the coaching staff there so far, and it seems like the offense is getting a little bit better every time we see them. The defense for Sparty has been legit so far this year. So that's what Boston College is going to have to contend with. And if Michigan State can shut down their running game, Michigan has a really good run defense. We've already seen a good run defense put the clamps on Missouri against Boston College. Boston College went to the air, and Castellanos threw for like 250 yards in that game, but it came with a couple of turnovers. That is obviously what Michigan State is going to try to do in this game defensively. And then can Michigan State, through the air, can they move the ball? Because I think the run defense for Boston College, you're looking at 25th success rate, 21st yards per rush allowed, 14th yards per successful rush, 27th in EPA per rush. So Boston College's run defense is legit. I like Michigan State, but yeah, for me, it would be the passing stuff with Sparty there. We got Bainbridge is going to be on here in a second. Gene, did you have any player props that you weren't able to give out before we toss up Mike Bainbridge?
Yeah, I got a couple player props that I obviously I like Nico over the 251.5. I think Froton talked about that earlier. I got that really early in the week. Over 251.5 for Nico. I tend to lean more guys who I can regulate how they're going to be used. Just for some thought process on how, which is why I always like quarterback props, because I know they're going to have the football in their hand. So that's one for sure that I've been on heavy all week. But other ones, you guys cover so many that you end up covering a lot of the stuff that I cover anyway. But I really did want to come back and talk about that one.
Yeah, the two that I wanted to toss out, because it was a game that we did not hit, but there was two props that I liked in it. So we'll mention this, but right before Bainbridge comes on, is I like the in the Northwestern and Washington game. I like the Denzel Boston overs. That was one that we hit on, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Washington, they're going to have to throw the ball there. And Northwestern, their pass defense is where you can get them. So I think that Washington has some success through the air, and there's a bit of a sticker price discount still on Denzel Boston. So for those reasons, and what I'm talking about with Northwestern's pass defense, 83rd in success rate. So you can hit them with that quick hit and stuff. That's what Will Rogers likes to do anyway. That's what his prerogative is. Northwestern's run defense is the thing that's really good, right? So Washington's passing offense could have more success today maybe than is anticipated because of the leaning of Northwestern there. And I know that when we bring up Mr. Bainbridge here, that he has a prop play on the Northwestern quarterback. So I'm going to leave that one alone. The other game that I wanted to hit on really quick before we brought Bainbridge on that we haven't yet is Rutgers traveling across or going down, to Virginia Tech today on the road there. This line opened at 4.5, and then it had come down to 3.5. And now here live, boys, you see what that line is live?
No, what is that?
We're at 3.5, depending on the book that you're at. I hit Rutgers on Sunday at 4.5. I still, especially if it's at 3.5, I like Rutgers in that game. My system's line on that one is Virginia Tech minus 1.8. Virginia Tech, they've been worse than we thought so far in the early going, and they are susceptible on the ground, which is a big thing in this game, of course, because of Kyle Monangai on the other side. Kyle Monangai is going to be a day 2 pick in April. He has a lot of stylistic similarities to Blake Corum. The spinning bowling ball, he's got the bowling ball build, and then it's sort of the shifty thing, and it's hard to square him up, and then he can break the tackles. They're going to ride Monangai in this game, and Virginia Tech on the other side, because of the constitution of Rutgers' defense, Kyron Drones is going to have to win this game through the air, I think. And we have seen in games where he had to throw the ball more. We have seen more turnovers, etc. Obviously, in the opener, that was the game where Virginia Tech got upset against another run-heavy team. Different constitution in Vanderbilt, where Vanderbilt is more the quarterback running, but the same sort of a deal. I mean, that is where Virginia Tech is susceptible. The Monangai number is so high, I don't know if you can bet it anymore, but they are going to give him the ball a billion times in this game. I think his rushing total. Froton, do you have it live? I think
it was 111 last time I started. 108 to 111 is where I had seen it kind of fluctuating around. I mean, it's a big line. You don't see plus 100 lines a lot on the rushing side, but it's justified because what else is Rutgers going to do? I mean, they'll throw a little bit. Don't get me wrong with your boy, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, but come on now. They're there to run the ball. They're there to run you over. And they've done it well. I mean, they're third in points per drive. They're putting up 49 points a game. against two Akron and a FCS team. So this is the first real test for Rutgers, and while Virginia Tech was a trendy sleeper, potential ACC title hopeful, they had the win taken out of their sails fairly early as well. I do like Rutgers as well. I'm with you.
It's time for our DFS discussion. Let's bring up Mike Bainbridge of the CFF site. And for Froton, I've seen your CFF t-shirt today.
Right, repping.
He's repping the company and I'm not. Shame on
Company
me.
man, Michael.
Yeah. And also Fantasy Points. You can find Bainbridge's work. Bainbridge does at the CFF site. They do individual player statistical projections for like every player, which is kind of unique, gives him a unique perspective. I consider Bainbridge the Don of college fantasy football. And a DFS expert. That's an area that we don't get as deep into, but that's why we bring on Bainbridge right now. Bainbridge, let's start with your biggest values on the board for people out there today looking at the DFS board.
Yeah, a lot of running backs this week. You're going to start with those with your core builds. They're cheap too. We'll start with someone that Thor. Devin Neal, Kansas running back. Only 7,400. I think the key here too, and I haven't, I've been running around this morning, so I haven't seen officially. Daniel Highshaw is kind of key here in his injury status because only Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal had a carry last week against UNLV. I think maybe a receiver got one, but that was it. No other running back touched the ball. And in DFS, we want guaranteed volume. So I think Highshaw's injury status is probably key to playing Devin Neal this week. And then Phil Maffa at $6,000 is it's absurd in my opinion. He should be upwards near 8. He's going to tote the ball 20 times a game every single week. So I think he is your probably highest owned player of the slate, but I think it's worth putting him into your lineups.
So just on the high shot thing, we had someone, let's see, I guess a Bleacher Report reporter who put out last night, Daniel Highshaw expected to play for Kansas. Kansas before that, the official thing had been, they had listed him as questionable. I'm seeing this morning, they updated his status to probable for today. So it looks like, yeah.
It lessens your interest maybe a little bit on Neal, but as you know, he scored 20 fantasy points last season, I believe 9 of 12 games. So again, he's just a consistent performer. So
and
staples your lineups.
Bainbridge, what we were talking about before, vis-a-vis the Kansas offense against that West Virginia defense, was how terrible West Virginia's passing defense is. And could this be the elixir that cures Kansas's passing game? It's not going to get brains to Jeff Grimes, but maybe it can keep Jalen Daniels out of throwing interceptions. At least they move the ball down the field. I mean, the run game is there, right? Like they just need the passing game not to give the ball to the defense so Neal can punch in some of those touchdowns. And Highshaw is sort of their bully ball guy and a great pass protector. So I think if, especially if he is not 100% Highshaw, I think you see him more in the pass pro type role. I don't know if he ends up cutting into Neal's touches at all, and that's a game obviously that projects to be somewhat of a shootout and a lot of points put on the board. Bainbridge, other guys you wanted to toss out for DFS, avoids other bottom barrel type guys to look at. What else you got?
Yeah, a lot of good options kind of in that mid-tier range. Ja'Cory Brooks for Louisville is only 4.8K. Jeff Brom, wide receiver ones are absolutely undefeated.
That's shocking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's clear. There was kind of this debate in the offseason who's going to be the wide receiver one there. Ja'Cory Brooks, Chris Bell. It is clearly Brooks. So I love that at 4.8K. He is probably in every single one of my lineups. And then a guy probably going a little, under the radar, not for us, who play college fantasy, but Xavier Henderson is in that he's in that 6K range where it's like, I either want to go really expensive or kind of, go down on salary with receivers. So I think he'll go under owned, but again, I want guaranteed volume. He's got 30% of the target share there at Cincinnati. Nobody else is really catching passes there. Like Tyron Smith, who came over from UTEP, invisible. They don't really have a wide receiver 2 there. So every single time they're dropping back to pass, they are going towards Xavier Henderson. In terms of a bottom of the barrel type bargain bin type plays, I'm sure you guys covered this one already. Caden Durham at LSU has taken over that backfield at this point. I spent the rest of my budget rest of my fob in the Thor 50-team league on Caden Durham because Caleb Jackson has been a complete bust.
Yes.
So I like him at 4.2K. I think his prop is somewhere in the
It's
high
49.5. I just looked it up.
Yeah, so the only way he doesn't hit that is if Brian Kelly just says, hey, I want to play Josh Williams because he's a senior. Like, that's the only way that Caden Durham doesn't get to that. And then Luke Haas at 3.2K. He hasn't been the same tight end that we saw last year. That was a top 10 fantasy tight end, but 3.2K. Like, you're not spending anything to get that talented of a tight end there. So I like him as a cheap option. Yeah,
I like that, Colin. A couple different things to respond to there. The Louisville situation over the offseason, it was a 3-horse race for the wide receiver one, right? And then Lacey went down with a broken collarbone. There was a report yesterday that Lacey is targeting the Notre Dame game to try to come back. He's not going to be playing in this game. The Brooks thing seems criminally low. I'm on the Brooks overs in the prop market. 65.5, like something like that. Like, yeah, that's what Jeff Brom does. I mean, look back all the Purdue teams, and then last year with Thrash, he just forces the ball to one dude. That's going to be Brooks. So today, and maybe going forward, but vis-a-vis against that number, against the number that we have out there in the books, and with DFS, yes, that's a buy. And then with Durham, 49.5. You mentioned they've had some disappointment there in the backfield. In an alternate sliding door reality, I think John Emery might be this team's starting running back. You guys remember in the opener against USC, they put him in because the other dudes were struggling, and at least he was running hard, and at least he was running with the tempo of the offensive line. Like, that was the issue with the other two dudes. And because of that, Emery had some success, and then, of course, he got injured again. Now he's out for the season. They are searching for anyone to take over that RB1 role. Durham is going to get his shot here and get his shot against a terrible team in UCLA that needs to travel for this game. You can run all over UCLA, and this game's going to be a blowout anyway. So I'm with you on that. Froton, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I can't even believe, as we talked about with Ja'Cory Brooks, Mike, you and I got him at 55.5 on open early in the week. Here he has steamed up 10 yards, 65.5. It's still too low. So I don't know what's going on with the pricing of this. This is Louisville, right?
Well,
this is the price, right?
You're against Georgia Tech. That defense is awful.
What's going on? Yeah, that's
you can throw on Georgia Tech, right?
Pricing is a little wonky on DraftKings this week because they got the backup quarterback for LSU priced higher than Garrett Nussmeier.
So that's fair.
Comes off with their algorithms.
Yes. Calling early to get that start. Right.
Come on. Yeah. Well, yeah. Froton, let's give us some more of your prop plays here. We got about 7 minutes left of the show, and then we'll sort of round robin and pick up because I know Bainbridge has some ideas on this. Bainbridge, I teased one of your didn't give it out. I teased it, set it up for you of the Northwestern quarterback. But let's start with Froton. Your other prop plays you have not given out yet for today's card.
Oh, that's great. Bainbridge is ready to go. I have faith in him. With what I'm going with here is an Iowa receiver. I should put it out as part of this, but I didn't. Reese van der Zee, or if you're Australian, van der Zed. That's how they say Z over there in Australia. Iowa at Minnesota. He's listed initially at 27.5. I think we're down to 25.5. Dude, okay, help me out here. Van der Zee. Game 1, Illinois State. Catches 5 of 7 passes for 66 yards. Game 2, Iowa State. 1 of 5 for 10. Game 3, Troy. 0 of 3. 0 yards with a drop. I'm sorry. I don't see it happening for Mr. Van der Zed. Give me the under on him. As you mentioned, Caden Durham, that's a great call. I'm a Keyshawn Smith guy. SMU versus TCU. I feel like he was overshadowed. And we have Jennings in. He is, again, solo threat quarterback. He cannot throw the ball forward. Show me 37.5 yards, Keyshawn Smith. I don't believe it. I'm taking his under 37.5. Baron Morton, we've talked about him before, and obviously his yardage is a good look, but dude, he's at 32.5 pass attempts on Underdog. Are you kidding me? All right, that's just flagrant. So give me that all day. We talked about Nico's under on 11.5 rushing attempts. Devin Mockabee playing Oregon State, listed at 56.5 rushing yards. He's splitting with Reggie Love, and he's a passing down back. He stinks between the tackles, and so does Purdue. All right, I know they're playing Oregon State here, so they have a chance, but they were down 42-0 at half to Notre Dame. They were pathetic. I'm sorry, I got to see it. Jordan Mosley, Mississippi State, another doozy. I really like this one. He's on FanDuel. 36.5 receiving yards. Creed Whittemore started last game. He's basically splitting that left starting spot with Whittemore, and he stunk last game. Mosley had one game, that first game, and then the last two, he's been terribly disappointing, and his reps have been going down. He didn't even start last game. Who knows what we see him get this game? I don't trust him at all. Give me that under. Talked about Velling, talked about Caleb Johnson, but oh boy, one more. Tight end, Michael Trigg, Baylor. Our old friend Michael Trigg, USC to Ole Miss to Baylor, and now he's in a good position because Jeff Grimes is gone, mercifully, and he's been pretty damn good. Michael Trigg, he has smoked his 23.5 line every single one of these games. I think he gets probably 6 targets. We've heard all about his athleticism, finally putting it all together at 23.5 yards. Baylor in a script where they're going to have to be throwing a little bit. They're playing Colorado. What more do you want against Colorado's defense? Give me their main weapon at 23.5 yards over Michael Trigg.
Bainbridge, your other prop looks today, including that sort of sneaky Northwestern quarterback prop.
Yeah, I'll save that one for my best buy at the end.
Oh, yeah,
but,
that's right.
So I guarantee you guys have covered this already. DJU, any props that are out there on him? They have.
It's a party.
On the Florida State message boards, I think the top thread, they have a poll. Who's going to start for Florida State this week? And I don't know what the results were, but if you give me that, I'm taking the unders every single time if they don't know who's going to start. This is the week that DJU gets replaced. Okay?
I hope he does start. I want to make sure he starts, and we get one rep out of him, and then he goes bye-bye.
Yep, he's getting replaced. And then I checked earlier today on Prize Picks. They put up Robbie Ashford at 172.5 passing yards. If he somehow makes it into the NFL, it's going to be as a wide receiver or a running back because it's not at quarterback. South Carolina is just going to bully ball all game long against Akron this week with Rocket Sanders, whoever the running back 2 is behind him, and Ashford's probably going to have 10 to 15 carries as well. So under on 172.5 passing yards for Robbie Ashford of South Carolina.
I love that you bring up Ashford. I was going to bring him up. So I love that you did. The over on the rushing I like, and then the under on the passing. I think also you could even consider the over on the interception. That guy's a terrible thrower. The accuracy not there. The pocket presence is not there. I realize it's going up against Akron's defense, but any opportunity that he gets to put the ball in the air is an opportunity for the defense to take it away. Totally agree with your read on that game. South Carolina is going to keep that on the ball, run. So that's sort of a sneaky one. I like both ends of that angle. Another, for me, ones that we have not hit on, I went over on Garbers, which, that's another sort of hold your nose. But in that LSU game, LSU's pass defense is where you can get them. LSU's run defense has improved. And of course, that game is going to be a blowout. So Garber's going to have to put the ball in the air. UCLA has decent receivers. Now, UCLA is going to get mauled in that game, but Garber's going to get plenty of opportunities to throw it. So that thing being around 200, I like the over on that. And then one, maybe another one that's sort of, people won't be expecting. I'm going the under on Colorado's passing props in this game. I'm going under on, and maybe I should put on. Thank you for sending me these. I got sent these from Coach Prime's new company. I'm going to put them on to fade Coach Prime's son, Shadir. We're going under 309.5 passing yards. Travis Hunter, we're going under 95.5 receiving yards. Baylor's pass defense. Yes, Baylor's pass defense is top 10, top 15 in the FBS. And the other thing to keep in mind with this game, there is expected to be rain, a big time rain and a little bit of wind tonight in Boulder. So you have both of those different things going on. The deleterious effect of the weather on the passing game. I think it by the stats, it decreases the productivity by something like 12%. And then you have Colorado going up against this really good pass defense. Dave Aranda, recall, with Baylor has taken over the defensive play calling, whereas in the past, went to the coordinator. So for those two reasons, I think that those numbers are set too high. I'm fading both of them. Gene already mentioned he didn't have any of the other props to add. So we're going to get right into the plays of the day. We're right here at 11:30 Eastern. Gene, we'll kick it off with you. Your play of the day. Coach's corner.
He's out.
Oh, Gene's.
You missed him.
I'm sorry.
He dropped.
Well, let's go to the Froton's torpedo then. Froton, your play of the day.
Absolutely, sir. Happy to do so. TCU running back Cam Cook. Now let's remember here, game 1 against Stanford, he got 20 carries, 81 yards. He only averaged 4 yards a carry. Okay? He goes over Liberty International, 13 for 58. Last game, UCF, and we faded him last game, 10 carries for just 27 yards. I have real concerns about how this TCU rushing attack is going to end up looking. I'm not particularly happy about the 2.7 yards per carry. I think you see a little more share coming this game because of it. Cam Cook was a guy that we were all pretty bullish on, especially in the underdog best ball world, because he was pretty well priced, but I'm having real concerns. He's up there at 63.5 rushing yards. That is a big line considering he went 10 for 27 against a UCF defense that, isn't the best in the world or anything. I'm very skeptical, and I don't think he gets the volume. Give me under 63.5 rushing yards, Cam Cook.
Bainbridge, we'll go to you next for your play of the day. I love this play so much that I've teased it now 8 times. Tell the people where you're at with that prop.
Yeah, it's harsh this weekend because my 2 favorite plays I can't bet on because I live in the state of Illinois and I cannot partake in any Illinois state schools and their prop bets. But so I would have loved to play Dylan Raiola in that Illinois game under rushing. Did not get a chance to do that.
Free money.
But I do like free money every single week. He didn't have positive rushing yards in however many years he started at high school. I don't even know.
Negative career.
Yeah. Negative. Jack Lausch, the new starting quarterback for Northwestern, went for 60 rushing yards last week. And he is set at 18.5 or 19.5 at some locations. I like the over on both. I would also look at anytime touchdown for him too. Reason why. New offensive coordinator for Northwestern came over from South Dakota State last year. They love incorporating the quarterback in the running game. 11 out of the 13 games last season, the South Dakota State quarterback went over this number by a considerable margin most weeks as well. So Jack Lausch ran for 60 plus yards last week. I like him to over 18.5 or 19.5 rushing yards.
I love that play. Yeah, I mean, you said it, and they can nick Washington with that with Lausch just manufacturing yards, and Northwestern, of course, has to manufacture yards. That number is set way too low. The books were obviously sleeping on that. Love that play. I've given a lot of the props that I like already on this episode, and thank you for everyone, first of all, for watching us this week, and anyone that took advantage last week. We had a ridiculous record on the player prop. So I appreciate all the DMs and the tweets about that. Feel free to send your cards today, but only if you win. Just kidding. But I'll go with the side since we've already hit a bunch of the props. My favorite one today was getting the 4.5 with Rutgers, and you can still get 3.5. I like Rutgers in that game. Like, they are way more than live. Their strength directly points into the weakness of that Virginia Tech team. And we've seen what happens when Virginia Tech on their offense, they have to go one-dimensional. And then going up against Greg Schiano, he is going to take advantage of that. I like Rutgers in this game. I think Rutgers is better than people think. Mentioned before, Virginia Tech obviously is not as good as some people thought heading into this season. So we're taking the points with the Scarlet Knights. Everyone, thank you for joining us on another episode of Betting Life's college football pregame show. Appreciate all of you guys. We will see you next week. For Eric Froton of NBC Sports, for Mike Bainbridge of the CFF site, for the coach, Gene Clemons, who you can see today on the Morgan State telecast on ESPN3. I am Thor Nystrom. We'll see you next time.